I'm excited for our guest speaker coming on too. We have Don Nichelson from the Hayward Fire
Oh, when is
Department.
he coming on?
He'll be coming on in about half an hour after, between 35 minutes after we begin. So somewhere around 11:45, 11:50 is when he'll be on. And he'll be introducing a portion of his presentation pertaining to CERT training in Hayward, which is really exciting. I'm looking forward to sharing in that. But I won't steal his thunder. He's got a lot of good information for us coming up shortly. Okay, so without further ado, we are at 11:15, so I will begin. Those people who will be coming on shortly, bless them all. I've been assured by our friends who are coordinating all of the Zoom activity that anybody who's signing on, your emails will be kept in a repository so I can communicate the PowerPoint to you afterwards, and any additional communications we can do through the school or through my personal email. So let's go ahead, and I welcome everybody to the Walkie Talkie in Emergencies and CERT training in Hayward. This is a two-part presentation. I will be doing the first part and then also concluding with questions and answers after the second part. So the first part will be specifically on the use of walkie-talkies in emergencies. And then the second part will be conducted by my friend Don Nichelson from Hayward Fire Department regarding CERT training, specifically in the city of Hayward, which some very exciting things there. So I am going to now shift to share screen, and let's go to share this screen. Can everybody see my share? Well, thumbs up. Okay, all right. So what we have is, and here we are. All right, what happens when cell phones stop working? And cell phones will stop working. I guarantee you they have stopped working in various times in our different disaster situations that have happened in the SF Bay area. If you recall, last summer we had the fires, and that shut down a lot of different municipalities. So how do you get in touch with your loved ones, or how do you communicate any type of emergency services if they are needed? There's the firestorms. And so we had a lot of people being evacuated, and when you lose cell phones without radios, the loss of communications can be quite frightening. Earthquakes. We live in earthquake country. And for those of you who have experienced different earthquakes along the way, and certainly the big one back in Loma Prieta back in '89, I was able to make a few phone calls out right after it happened to contact loved ones, and boom, the cell phone services shut down. And back then I was not prepared with my walkie-talkies, so I had to bear and grunt through traveling through the Bay Area with broken bridges and such, without any kind of communications with my family. But we have a better solution for us now. So we're going to use radios, and radios will continue to work when cell phone services are down. The Department of DHS tackles emergency services and emergency communications. And we have a variety of different kinds of handhelds that can be used in emergency services, emergency times. We encourage practicing the use of the radios, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But radios will get through when cell services are down. So here's the FCC, Federal Communications Commission. They set aside certain ranges of frequencies of the airwaves for us to do different things. And if you look across the top, you have on the far right, whether you have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, you have medical, and then you have cell phones. And then somewhere between cell phones and TV, you have a range of radio that is available. And so we have this to be able to enjoy. Let me go to here. Okay. For radio communications, for those of you who've ever used walkie talkies when you've been on a camping trip and such, you know that they work very well as long as you have a clear line of sight between you and the person that you're speaking to. But you get into a densely forested area, or if there's a terrain like a hill, mountain, something between you and who you're communicating with, the radio transmissions become a little more challenged. So if you look at the image that's on the right of the screen, it shows radio transmission is limited to line of sight. And as long as there's no big obstruction like a mountain between you and who you're trying to transmit to, radio communications can work for miles. It can work really, really well. Some of these Target and Walmart branded radios, they say, yes, you've got 20, 25, 30 miles capability. Well, on a clear day with a clear line of sight between you and the other mountaintop, maybe, but we don't live in that kind of environment. So there is something known as a repeater. And a repeater, if you look at the image that's on the right, is a tower that's mounted typically on the top of a hill, top of a mountain somewhere, and they work very similarly to cell phone towers, and they repeat the signals for radios much the same way that cell towers repeat signals for your cell phones. And by having a repeater that's on top of a mountain, then we're able to communicate from one side of the mountain up to the repeater to the other side of the mountain. And so repeaters is really the key to extending the network capability of your radio communications. Next. So keep in mind, we like repeaters. All right, there's different kinds of radios that are out there that we can use, different kinds of walkie-talkies. So walkie-talkies come in a type of radio band called FRS. FRS stands for Family Radio Service. And they run between 0.5 watt to 2 watt of power on the little walkie-talkie. So the power of transmission is rated in terms of watts, and they're really fun for, when you go camping or you're talking between cars on a road trip someplace. They work really, really well for most little campsites, as long as the little ones don't go too far away from the campsite, or the cars don't go too far away from each other as you're traveling in a caravan on the highway. They work great. However, they don't work with repeaters, so we put down no repeaters here. The next range of frequencies is called GMRS, and GMRS we'll talk a lot about, a General Mobile Radio Service, and they can go up to a 50 watt limit. And yes, they do have GMRS repeaters, which allow them to go many, many more miles depending upon a repeater's capability or a group of repeaters. Then the next range, amateur radio, otherwise known as ham radio. You'll hear me talk about amateur and ham. Those terms are used synonymously, and they can range from 2, 3, 5, 10, all the way up to 1,500 watts. You can communicate around the world with these radios. And yes, because there are repeaters that are available is the reason why we can communicate all the way around the world. It's absolutely fascinating. These other ones we won't talk about too much because they're well, anyway, Citizens Band was very popular for, and still remains popular in some areas, but they have a limited wattage output, and they have no repeaters. And then there's also MERS, which we won't spend a lot of time talking about, no repeaters. So we're really focus our attention on the very first three, which are FRS, GMRS, and ham radio. And the next one here. All right, radio range in miles. This says base to base. So that means, and what they define base station is a base station with an antenna on a suburban house rooftop. Okay, so you have a rooftop antenna, I have a rooftop antenna. This is about how far we may be able to go from these different technologies. So FRS, really not very far, between 0.5 mile to up to a maximum of 2 miles, depending upon terrain. GMRS can go a little further because it's higher wattage. CB can go quite a ways if you use some higher wattage devices. Ham radio, without repeaters, have the ability to go quite a distance. As you can see, we're going to take a look at Starting off with our friends, Family Radio Services, what FRS stands for. And this is where our first exposure to walkie-talkies in the past is. You pick these up at Walmart or Target, and you throw them in the car and you program them so that 2-3 cars are on the same frequency. And yes, you can talk to each other as you're traveling down the freeway in your mobile caravan to Disneyland. And somebody calls up on the radio that's on a shared frequency between your 3-4 cars and say, "Oh, Junior's got to go make a pit stop at the next gas station that comes up." And somebody says, "Okay, well, we have a good stop, and we can stop at Button Willow on the way down to LA. Why don't we pull over there for a couple of hours?" One person talks into the walkie-talkie, everybody hears it in the caravan, and you all pull over at the same time, which is great. And this is where these radios have been working really, really well, is short distances between cars in a caravan, in campsites, things of that sort. We do have a really good recommendation in this particular one that my friends, the Fentons, have discovered. Let me go to this next one. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about FRS, Family Radio Service. Pros and cons. First of all, any radio is better than no radio when there's no cell phone, okay? They are budget priced. There is no FCC license required. They're remarkably easy to use. And there are some limitations. The limitations, the cons are, they don't have a whole lot of wattage output. That wattage output is one of the things that determines how far you can communicate. So generally speaking, the higher the wattage, the farther you can communicate. They do have a fixed antenna. The little stubby antenna is something you can't replace. And so you can't put on a more sophisticated antenna or an antenna that can reach, transmit farther or receive from farther away. So the short antenna does limit your reception and transmissibility. Line of sight. If you can see the other person at the end of the football field, you can communicate just fine to the other end of the football field or to the end of the Costco parking lot. It's easy as long as you've got a line of sight. When you don't have a clear line of sight, when you've got structures in the way like trees, terrain, things of that sort, buildings, then the comms are going to be more challenged. So HTs is the abbreviation that we use for handy talkies. Walkie-talkies, something you put in your hand, and they're really limited to between 0.5 watt to 2 watts of output. Now, in the inset here, I've got a very special set of walkie-talkies. These are really cool. These were introduced to me by the Fentons. The Fentons, by the way, Jay Fenton is one of our people you see in the chat grid. They are my Elmers. Elmers are people who in the radio world are helping newbies like myself become more learned about the science of radio. So as my Elmers, they've introduced me to this Radioddity FST1 FRS two-way radio. Great little radio, tremendous little radio for $29.99 in a 2-pack. So if you're gonna get an FRS, get this this model, okay? No, yes, you could go to Target and get a Motorola something or other, and you can go to Walmart and get a Midland something or other. But what's really cool about these is they have a dual channel display, so you can see 2 different channels on your display. It's a huge display. You can see 2 different frequency channels on the display. You can monitor 2 different channels at the same time. It comes with a lithium-ion battery, rechargeable through a USB port, so you don't need a cradle to charge these things up with. It does come with a fixed antenna, a little belt clip, and seems to work really, really well for the FRS range of frequencies. And so the highly recommended, and it's for $29.99 for a 2-pack. You can't go wrong. Okay, so highly recommended. Jay, would you like to say any quick endorsement for these? Because I know you've played with these a little bit. You're on.
I'm on. If you're looking for a comment, there was a rule change by the FCC back in 2017. And at that time, what they did was they separated out the GMRS from the FRS combination radios. And the old standard was that FRS was capped at 0.5 watt and GMRS was capped at 1.5 watts. And this is a very significant change because now you can go FRS up to 2 watts, and the GMRS can go to 5 watts on a handheld and 50 watts on certain frequencies. So it opened up the range of distance by adding more wattage to these. But the way that they've been building FRS combination GMRS radios for a long time is very archaic, old battery designs and the like. And this radio here is built by a ham radio manufacturer, Baofeng. And so it has neat features in it like voice prompt and dual channels on the same screen that you can go back and forth. You can monitor 2 channels at once. And it has a lithium ion battery. And if that's not enough, these things are like $35 for a package of 2. So we just bought 10 of them, and we're handing them out to people or reselling them to get people started with it. But this is a really great little starter transitional radio that once you get into this, and if you master that, mastering a ham radio or GMRS radio is very simple after that.
Thank you, Jay. That's quite an endorsement. The price that I have on the screen is $29.99 from Amazon. If you go Prime free one day, I've got a pair on order, so I can't wait for them to get to the school, and we'll be trying them around the school. So yeah, this particular one comes from this particular model, make and model, comes as a recommendation from my Elmers, Jay and Karen Fenton. Let me go to the next slide. And the next slide will graduate from FRS to GMRS. And GMRS stands for General Mobile Radio Service. And here we get into a more sophisticated radio. This particular one does require a license. However, this license at present is $70 for your whole family for 10 years. You don't have to take a test. All you have to do is fill out an application with the FCC, your name, and send in your $70. And for $7 a year, your entire family is covered under this license. And who is your family? If you look at my inset, it includes the licensee, the spouse, partner, children, grandchildren, stepchildren, parents, grandparents, step-parents, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, as well as your in-laws. You've got the entire family covered for $7 a year for up to 10 years. And this fee is in the process of coming down. The FCC just recently agreed to move the price from $70 to $35. That hasn't been implemented yet. So on all their websites, it's still $70, but sometime in the course of this spring, that licensing fee we see will come down to what they've decided on is $35, because more and more people are finding this band of radio frequencies extremely easy to use, and there's no test for it. The advantages here are, first of all, if you look at this, this has an antenna that can be removed. And so by having a removable antenna, it allows you to change improve its ability to receive, as well as improve its ability to transmit over the FRS type of radios. This is capable of FRS frequencies as well as GMRS frequencies. So it gives you more wattage capability. So again, here with radios, the higher the wattage, the farther that you can communicate. Okay, they're also very reasonably priced. And covering your family for 10 years, it's cheaper than fishing licenses, I guarantee you. So as long as anybody in your family who's 18 years or older can apply for this license, and it covers the entire family, it's remarkable. The cons, there's no cons, really. I do have a step-by-step here on how to get your GMRS license. It's a great radio. This particular one we'll talk about in greater detail in a subsequent slide. But GMRS is a wonderful step above FRS as a radio service. Now, next. let's go to here. All right, now we get into the creme de la creme, if you will, the amateur radio, also known as ham radios. And ham radios, and here's my selection of some of the ones that I have, can be used with a broad range of antennas. You see we've got one here that's like almost 15, 16 inches long. That helps your transmissibility. So when you compare the little stubby antennas of the FRS to the intermediate antenna of the GMRS to these guys, some of these with the longer antenna will give you more reach, better reception, and better transmissibility. The handy talkies for this particular category can range anywhere from 5, 8, 10 watts of output, so even higher wattage output than the GMRS radios. The mobile radios that goes into your vehicles can range between 25 to 100 watts. That gives you quite a bit more range of transmitting. Then, if you use the repeaters that I showed you earlier, these towers that go on mountaintops, you can get tremendous further range by using connecting with repeaters. Repeaters are kind of like cell phone towers. And then, yes, with the amateur radios, we've had a number of people reach out all the way to the International Space Station. You don't need any special machine to be able to reach out to the space station. It's pretty easy, actually. Cons, at present, $15 for individual for 10 years. Okay, that's $1.50 for 10 years, for each year for 10 years. That's not bad at all. But you do have to pass an FCC license in order to get the FCC test in order to get an FCC license in order to broadcast on these radios. This fee will go from $15 to $30, $35. Shortly, it'll be the same fee as the GMRS. They're going to, FCC is going to stabilize at one particular fee for their licensing. So amateur radio, let's continue. With repeaters, there are different networks that are set up that are multiple repeaters, and Carla is one of them. Carla stands for California Amateur Radio Linking Association, and the list on the side shows towers in San Francisco, Sacramento, Fresno, Shasta, Pleasanton, Walnut Creek, Monterey Bay, all over the, yes.
Sorry, you weren't showing the webpage. Oh, there it is now. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, and then so Carla goes to show on the far right the list of 36 different repeater towers that they have set up. So it's all over California for this. And I was able to communicate from San Francisco one day on the Carla 5 Oakland Tower to a man in Tuolumne just outside Yosemite National Park. I mean, that's wild. I'm in San Francisco and I'm communicating to a repeater tower that's in Oakland. So that's on the other side of the bay. And then from that repeater tower, since it's part of the Carla network, a man in Tuolumne outside of Yosemite National Park was able to pick up my communications, and we had a nice brief chat. Hello, how are you? I'm from here. And it was very interesting. I was able through the Carla network to communicate from Hayward to Modesto, San Francisco, or Orinda to Redding, California. So you have with a repeater, not just a single repeater, but a repeater network, tremendously greater range of communications. Now from here, we can graduate further to the next one, which is our friend, the WIN repeater system. WIN stands for Western Intertie Network. And with the WIN repeater system, they have over 100 repeaters around the US and many other countries around the world. If you take a look at these pictures, the one on the upper left shows these an array of radios on radio tower antennas, and their stations are all powered by solar so that they are off the grid. They don't need any power from PG&E to run these towers for repeating. Another set, the middle picture shows another set of broadcasting towers. And the one at the bottom is particularly interesting. I'm going to magnify the one at the bottom and show this to you. This one's particularly interesting from this standpoint. Right here, that's a fella standing on a platform And it shows the size of this array of antennas for a repeating. There's like many, many, many repeaters here. So this is a very serious network repeater system sponsored by WIN. And these three different instances, let's see, I live about 25 miles away from the nearest WIN repeater in Napa, and I tune into that frequency, and I've been able to chat with people in Santa Fe, New Mexico, to Seattle, to Las Vegas, Salt Lake City. I have heard conversations from Vancouver, BC, Yokohama, Japan, Israel, Honolulu. It's amazing. So when you can get a ham radio connected to a repeater system, such as the WIN system, you can communicate with the world, okay? And let's continue. More good stuff to come. Nato phonetic alphabet is really cool. We do use the letters. So the Nato phonetic alphabet, we call out call signs simply because the letters, if you take a look at this third bullet point here, C, G, T, E, V, all sound very similar. However, if you use the Nato call alphabet, then A is alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf. So when we call out different letters, we call out using the phonetics as shown here, and this is universal for all aspects of radio communication. So my call sign is spelled out as CO6GUY or KO6GUY, but I would call it out as Kilo Oscar 6 Golf Uniform Yankee is how I would identify myself on the radio, and that way people will know exactly which letters and how to find me if they need to get a hold of me further down the road. All right, let's go ahead and start a net. Okay, we talked about this the last Flex Day. It's very easy to start a net. Some of you have existing walkie-talkies. Just load up some fresh batteries, and we can designate a day and a time, get on campus, you in one building, me in another building, and I'll draft a list for FRS users. I'll draft a list for GMRS users and do a roll call. And I'll draft a list for ham users and do a roll call. And whatever radios you have, if you have some that you're not familiar with, bring them to me. I'm in building 1600. Be happy to reprogram or program or get them set up so that we can communicate with each other. And so here, something very important, FRS radio users can communicate with other FRS radio users. So if you got that Walmart special, you've got that new Radioddity radio that I introduced you to earlier, you can communicate with anybody else using the FRS frequency band. No license required. You just go pick up a walkie-talkie and boom, you can communicate with other people. We can do that on campus. Now the GMRS radio users, this is the one that gives you greater range, and this one does require a license, but there's no test with this license. You just fill out an application with the FCC, $70 at present, and it's good for your family for a whole 10 years with all the different family members that I mentioned. Now ham radio users, we can communicate. We can listen to FRS, we can listen to GMRS comms. It is against FCC regulations for ham users to use ham radios to communicate with FRS and GMRS users. That's why I have different radios. I have FRS radios to communicate with FRS friends, GMRS radios to communicate with GMRS friends, and then ham radios to communicate with ham radio friends. We can sort all that out easily. Next, the thing is to practice. You got to practice. Would you ever go for a driver's license without practicing? You got to practice radio communications also. And we do this regularly with my Elmers, third bullet point, Jay and Karen Fenton. They set up a emergency communications drill every first Wednesday of the month, 11 a.m. when the sirens go off in West Contra Costa County. We start this, they start this emergency communications broadcast, and people all over the West counties from Berkeley all the way up through Antioch get onto this, and we communicate with each other as a practice drill. We should do this at Chabot College. practice. Next, we have, I just started this, and you will all have access to this PowerPoint, because they said that we would have all of the emails, and I'll be sending you this PowerPoint. So in the PowerPoint, if you click on this, this will take you to our Facebook website. We have a Facebook website. You just look under Chabot College Radio Club, and lots of really good information there. So that's up and running. And so click on that when you have a moment. And then next, all right, recommendations. Here we go, friends. Starter radios, $29.99. You get a 2-pack from our friends at Amazon. You can buy this directly from Radioddity also, but Amazon, if you have a Prime account, boom, it's fast and it's easy. And as you can see, you've got 2 different displays for 2 different frequencies. So channel 1 is this frequency, channel 22 is this frequency. You don't have to worry about the frequency number. You just have 22 channels to play with. And so it's got what we call dual watch and dual display. So you can listen to, say, the kids in one frequency, and if you're at a campsite, you can communicate with adults on a different frequency. It's really, really handy. This just came to us from my Elmers, the Fentons, as they've started playing with this. And you heard Jay earlier, just ordered another 10 for his group in West Contra Costa County. Lanyard, USB chargers, you don't need a cradle, and just a great radio for $29.99 for a 2-pack. So let's get a couple of these. I've got a pair on order, which we're going to play with on the campus. But let's get some of these and let's play with these on campus just to get started with our radio club on campus. Next is GMRS. This is a great GMRS radio, comes to us from B-Tech or Baofeng Tech. And this particular guy, it ranges in price anywhere from $54.99 up to $79.89. And these are hot links. If I click on either one of these on the PowerPoint that you'll get, you'll be able to go directly to the site. The one at $54.99, they're presently sold out. So when they're going to get some more at that price, I don't know. But I just clicked on that, and they're presently sold out. I have 2 of these that I use on campus, and they work great. The Amazon Prime does have these available, and they're running at $79 on the Amazon site. These are more capable than the FRS radios. They have detachable antennas, upgradable antennas, more power. And a bigger battery, 1800 milliamp hour lithium battery. Great radio. So I've got 2 of these on campus, and they've been working really, really well. Then mobile radio. Some of our friends have asked us regarding, well, hey, I'm going camping, so what can I use? Can I use something in the car or the SUV or the family vehicle for a base station, and then the hand units out in the field? Yes. Highly recommend something like this. This is a GMRS radio. It's 20 watts and ranges from under $95 to $129 if you buy it directly from Redivus, and a great little radio. There's a price range because there's a difference of service and accessibility. So I highly recommend dealing directly with Redivus. Pay a little bit more, and you're going to get the ability to get more service. And at $129, it does include this antenna, which mounts on top of your car, and this has a cigarette lighter over here, so that you can plug it into your vehicle. So it's very easy to set up. The one at $94.40 does not include an antenna at all, so you have to figure out some other way to get an antenna. So you got to watch out what you pay for. I can guide you in this process if any of you have any questions. But this is a great little starter radio for under $130, including an antenna. Next, now we get into ham. And for ham, this is a wonderful starter radio for amateur radio. I've bought bunches of these. And back in the day, I paid less. This has come up in price because it's been so popular. So it's presently running $89. And this is for a more serious radio user who wants to talk to the world. Okay, not just talk to our family and friends locally, but really talk beyond to the world. And so I have purchased no less than 4 of these myself. and they work really, really well. Starter radio for mobile. These are fantastic. This comes in two flavors. It's either a Retevis or it comes as an Anytone. They are the same make, same machine, but under two different labels, as you can see here. These are also links. So when you get the PowerPoint, you can click on these. You do need a license to transmit. You don't need a license in order to do any listening. But this is the type of rig that you can use in your vehicle, and they'll range between up to 25 watts of power. And then let's go to here. Now, for advanced users, I highly recommend this Anytone. This brings you into the realm of digital, which is a whole nother discussion. This is analog and digital. So what you understood from music, digital, tape versus CDs, which has less noise. CDs have less noise because they're digital. Tape has a little more noise because 8 tracks, and cassette tape because they're analog. So this brings you into a different realm for a user who wants to graduate further. And a range of radios, which I can get into a discussion with you of what I use and how I use it. The most noteworthy thing is your antenna. The higher you can get your antenna, the farther you can broadcast. And if you look at this, there's my car, and there's my painter's pole, and mounted on the top of the painter's pole is an adapter with a whip antenna, and that whip antenna that high up allows me to communicate from my car to many, many places. There's also the ability to go back here. On this side is I can mag mount on the top of my car. All right, I think that's a plenty. We're going to have a question and answer session before we end this at 12:15. But at this point in time, I'd like to introduce my friend and from Hayward, and we're going to talk about CERT. So CERT, CERT, Community Emergency Response Team, reads as is a program that educates volunteers about disaster preparedness for hazards that may impact their area and trains them in basic disaster response skills such as fire safety, light search and rescue, team organization, and disaster medical operations. The PowerPoint you will receive, these are live links. This is a link that will take you to a site from FEMA. This is a link that will take you to their 200 plus page training manual. This is another link that will take you to their field guide for operating a CERT team. So with that, I'd like to welcome Don Nichelson. Nichelson is staff captain with Hayward Fire Department, public information officer, public education officer, and CERT program coordinator. And I'd like for Don to be able to take over the presentation and talk about the CERT program that Hayward is sponsoring. So with that, I'm going to stop the share here. And Don, there's Don. Yes, we see you.
And you hear me? Okay, good. All right, like Frank said, thanks for that great presentation, Frank. That was awesome. What CERT is basically, not to scare you guys, but this kind of helps a little bit in understanding why you need training, whether it's CERT or any other form of disaster preparedness training, is because, if you have an emergency, say you fall down and break your ankle, well, within a couple minutes, you'll get a fire truck, fire engine, ambulance to transport you to the hospital. And then give you a little overview of our mutual aid system. What we do is, if we have a big fire in Hayward, say, we have 5 fire engines, we have 9 throughout the city. We have 5 fire engines at a fire and 2 trucks. So what happens is we call for mutual aid. So say we get Oakland, Alameda County, they come and backfill our stations so we could still run our emergency calls as per normal. So going back to that incident where you fell down and broke your ankle, if you did that while we had this big fire, you would get someone from Alameda County or Oakland to respond to your broken ankle. So in a disaster setting, especially, what we usually do in CERT is focus on the earthquake preparedness, because that is the biggest threat that we have to the Bay Area. So in that mutual aid scenario, an earthquake doesn't just happen in Hayward. So, it happens over, a vast area. So that mutual aid that we would call, because we're out, say fighting a fire, or building collapse, or rescuing people, or whatever the case may be, all of our engines are going to be, and trucks are going to be occupied or busy, right? So we're not going to be able to call that mutual aid because Oakland is dealing with their own stuff. Alameda County is dealing with their own stuff. So that being said, you're going to have to be prepared, to take care of yourselves for a while, up to a couple of days. We usually say about 3 days. It could be up to 7 days. And who knows, depending on the size of the earthquake and the devastation, could be even longer than that. Because what we're doing is we have to go outside of the area. I mean, really outside of the area, like from, calling, areas that aren't affected by the earthquake, which would be like, out to the valley, like Modesto. That's kind of by where I'm from. And you think about the infrastructure damage, how are the fire engines going to get across a bridge or overpass, or, damaged roads, rock slides, and stuff like that. So that's going to delay them in their response to help the people. So, I think it's a personal responsibility for everybody to take some basic training and, get involved in, how to better prepare and take care of yourselves, your family, and your neighborhood, your community. So that's basically what CERT is. So CERT was developed by Los Angeles Fire Department back in, I think, the 80s, I want to say, after I think it was the, I can't remember the name of the earthquake. I haven't taught the CERT class in during this whole year because of the pandemic, but anyways, they came up with this formula to train their communities, and they realized that these people are going to be on their own for a while, so might as well train them and get them involved in disaster preparedness. So they came up with this model, and pretty soon FEMA got a hold of it, and what they did was they kind of tweaked it a little bit and made it more applicable to all types of disasters like hurricanes, floods, and tornadoes, wildfires, and stuff like that. So in the CERT training, since it's a national program, you'll get different topics, depending on what the area is more susceptible to. Like, so if we're in Texas or something, or Oklahoma, they would probably focus more on tornadoes than earthquakes. So in Hayward, what we do is we focus a lot on earthquakes. And what that does is allows us to, because earthquakes encompass so much more than just, a fire or a gas leak or an explosion. It encompasses all that, plus building collapse, and I mean, just major calamity. So, that's good for the area to focus on earthquakes, because it encompasses so much more than just, say a tornado. So in the class, what we do is we're kind of shifting gears. What we did before, when I took over the program, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, what we were doing is called a catch and release. So, we would say, here's all this training information. We give you, binders, and with all that, the link that you just that you had on your PowerPoint, Frank, that binder is given to the CERT participants in hard copy. So, we invest in, so you can study that. And also what we do is we give them a backpack with equipment in there, like a hard hat, a safety hat, gloves, goggles, what else is in there? A vest, so you can identify yourself as a CERT team member. But what we were doing is like I said, it was called catch and release. So we would train you and hope in hopes that you would be able to provide some assistance to your neighborhood, your community, your family, and help us out in the long run, because we're going to be scrambling as a fire department, we're going to be scrambling to to try to take care of everybody, and that's just not going to happen. So being on your own for a while is the reality. So in the training, what we do is I'm sorry, I'm kind of losing my spot here. Going back to the catch and release, what we decided to do is come up with an idea and a format to be able to call on those volunteers that are ready and willing to help out. So one of the things that we always instruct the class is, this isn't like you're not a paid member of the fire department, so it's not like you have to come in. So like what we do is what we're planning on doing is being able to call upon those volunteers, have them respond to an area that we is pre-designated, and if you can make it, if you took care of yourself, your family, your neighborhood's fine, then you could respond to that that incident. So that's our goal, is to get in touch with those people that are able to respond and help out. So this pandemic has been a kind of a challenge for us, because it's we've used the volunteers a few times, or actually just one time, just a man a call, or a call center. So that was for a wildfire in Pleasanton, Livermore area, and Livermore in the hills there. Do you remember when they were evacuating people? So we had CERT personnel work at a call center. So that was like our first time that we activated people to to help out. So what the pandemic has kind of taught us is that we need help. We can't just have untrained volunteers to do things that require more training. So that's our goal right now moving forward, is to be able to call upon people to help out if they can. So in the CERT training, what we do, give you kind of an overview. It's about 17 hours is what we've been doing. That might be increased a little bit, because what we're doing now is virtual training. So kind of like what Frank is doing. But we're going to have we have a website that the fire department uses to allow the firefighters to keep up with continuing education, for their paramedic licenses and fire department MOUs and announcements and stuff like that. That's required that we read that stuff. So what this it's called Target Safety or Target Solutions. This website, we purchased a certain amount of guests to use it. So when we activate the program, after we lay it out and work out all the bugs and everything, we're going to have this on our website, on that Target Solutions. So you go to Target Solutions, you log in, create an account, and then you're able to take the CERT class virtually. So what that does is, how this presentation is live, the CERT presentation will be taped. So that will allow you, say, you have to go pick up your kids or something, stop the video, and you log back in a couple of days from now. Well, you're at the same exact spot that you stopped the video. So that's a perk, because when we were doing live CERT training with an audience, the 4 classes, there's actually 5 classes that we do. The first 4 are all lecture with a little bit of hands-on, and then the 5th one is hands-on only, so you put your skills that you've learned to use. So what we do is, what we're going to do with the virtual is do all the units that we have taped, and then we're going to organize a safe hands-on, with a maximum of like 12 people. So we might have to do multiple hands-on training depending on how many people take the class. So let me give you a kind of a rundown of, I know I'm kind of rambling on between topics here, but let me give you a rundown of what CERT units that that we cover in CERT class. So basically, the first unit is disaster preparedness. That kind of goes over a lot of things that we just discussed about, not being able to depend on 911 for any needs that you have. Even if they're serious, we're not going to be able to respond because we're busy with that mall collapse or whatever the case may be. And then we move into fire safety. So fire safety is actually, you learn how to use a fire extinguisher, and you don't only, go over the basics in fire suppression. It goes more in detail. So, about fire chemistry, how you put out a fire, what components you need to put out the fire, and how to safely do that. So what we do on the final hands-on day is actual, we have a burn pan that we use to, put out a live fire. So we have a real live fire extinguisher, putting out live fire. So that's what we do on the final hands-on. So the next unit that we do, we usually do these two units together, is disaster medical operations part 1 and 2. So that's basically a rundown of, how to treat different medical emergencies. We don't teach CPR in this because CPR is a dedicated, you're going to need a couple people to do that. And in a disaster setting, as bad as it may sound, if someone requires CPR, they're probably not going to make it, because how are you going to get them to the hospital? They need to be there as soon as possible, and, with no ambulance, en route, it's, the chances are they're not going to survive. So we teach medical triage, how to sort between, who is the most serious and the least serious. So we also initiate people to help out. The victims can help out, so use their victims as well. And then we talk about, like how to assess somebody head to toe, looking for injuries. And then we go into like medical treatment areas, how to establish those outside of the incident. Say if it was an earthquake, you want to get them out of the building if it's safe for you to even go in there. So that's another thing that we cover, is the building safety. But we even go into like treating fractures, how to use a makeshift splint, wound care, treating burns, and there's just a lot of stuff that we cover in the medical. So and then we talk about light search and rescue. That's another unit. Like I said before about entering a building, is it safe to enter a building? One of the things about CERT is we never are going to put you in harm's way. So if you come to a building that is severely damaged or even moderately damaged, there's components that you look for to, distinguish between if I can enter or I have to isolate the, make sure nobody else goes inside. So that's some of the things we do. Team markings, that's a national system, or if not international, of how to mark a door to make sure there's not duplication of effort as far as, if a structure has already been searched. Conducting interior and exterior searches, grid searches outside, interior, how to safely conduct a search and rescue inside a building without getting lost or disoriented. We talk a little bit about CERT organization, how the hierarchy would work. And we use the incident command system, to make sure that there's not 5 bosses and 3 people that are working for them. So we have one boss for every 5 or 6 people that are working underneath that person. So and mobilization, we talk about that as far as like how you would like I talked about earlier, how you would get a call out, how you would be notified, that kind of stuff. So we do discuss disaster psychology, which you might think, well, that's kind of out of the realm of we're talking about emergency here. Well, you have to remember what I said about you have to be safe yourself. So being safe, recognizing, disaster trauma, survivors trauma, stuff like that, and in yourself, so that you don't get, in trouble psychologically and mentally. So look for the signs and symptoms of that. So to prevent that from happening. We talk about terrorism and CERT. We go over a lot of different things as far as recognizing, the signs of terrorism, being an active, person to watch out for the signs of terrorism, and how to report that. But one of the things about terrorism and CERT is we do not. It's like a stop sign. So that's what we say. And the same thing with hazardous materials. So if you run across say a train accident or something like that, where there's chemicals involved, you step away and try to prevent people from, getting involved there. And then what we do, like I said before, is we focus on earthquakes, what to do before, after, during an earthquake, how to be better prepared in your homes, your workplace, places where you spend a lot of time, different ways to fortify your home, and make it more safe, and different areas that you can go to. And then we weed out the common myths that we have about go stand in your doorway, or whatever the case may be. So we talk a lot about that. The other thing that I have decided that's outside of the curriculum is active shooter. What we usually do is we do an active shooter presentation. So that's not in the CERT curriculum, but that's something that I came up with on my own, with using research and data. So we have that we put into the CERT program. And we sometimes we get like guest speakers that come in, and we have I'm going to say this wrong, epidemiologist that has from Stanford, that has offered her services. So that's something that we're going to provide to the CERT team. And let me clarify something here. So the CERT, basic CERT training is, you go through the course, you graduate, you get a certificate, you get your backpack, you already have your binder, all that kind of stuff. So that allows you to join the CERT team. So once you're on the CERT team, we offer these trainings, like it's kind of been different this year because of the pandemic, but we offer these trainings like every other month. So what we focused on before is like this is for the CERT team, focused on a national program called Stop the Bleed, which is put on by the County Department of Public Health. And we've done that class probably 3 or 4 times, offered it, and the class has been full every time. So it's something that's it's a good class. The other thing is, like, we get PG&E outside instructors, to come in, teach the class about electrical emergencies, gas emergencies, and all that kind of stuff. So being part of the CERT team, usually what we do is we're not that picky as far as you have to work in Hayward, or you have to live in Hayward, you have to live in Hayward. But I take it a step further. If you work in Hayward, if you're spending 8, 10, 12 hours a day here, why not, if you can't get home anyways, why not, learn about what to do and in a disaster, and help out the Hayward community. So another probably questions. I kind of went off I always do this with my format. I come up with talking points, and I hate when I have to read something, so I just talk. So I apologize.
This is great. I appreciate you sharing the information that you have done. We're nearing we're very nearing the end of our time with our friends here. So Gabe, who's coordinating all of these training sessions with our faculty and staff members, has assured me that he's kept a log of all of the people who have signed on to this particular session. I will be receiving their emails for follow-up. I will share that with Don so that questions that are pertaining to radio, I will address questions that are pertaining to CERT. I will certainly forward them over to Don, as I'm sure there's equal interest in both areas. And I look forward to when that CERT training can begin. Do you have a rough idea of the schedule of the time frame when that CERT training might begin?
Well, it'll be no later than April. We usually have the trainings in April and October, so I have to record the videos and work out the kinks, with doing that. And I was, listening to your presentation and taking notes. So, I might actually hit you up later about how to, share the screen with your PowerPoint. So that's what we're currently working on.
Yes, we can certainly do that. And as you can see, I would take this whole page is all you. These are the notes I've taken.
Wow, you're a good note taker.
Good learning experience. Well, with that, I have to respect the time frame of all of our friends. I really appreciate you coming on and speaking for and representing Hayward Fire Department. Don, it was nice to finally see the face on the other side of our correspondence via emails. I'd like to thank first and foremost my Elmers, Jay and Karen Fenton, who trained me in all different aspects of radio that I've learned so far. It's a continuing journey, and it's a whole lot of fun. We have a Facebook page that was just been created, so definitely look for us on Facebook. That's Chabot College Radio Club. So look for us there for further information that will be ongoing. And I'll be getting the 2 radios from Radiodity to play with on campus shortly. So we'll share that between buildings and see how that goes. So without any further ado, I'd like to thank everybody for coming on. I don't want to just close this out. Are there any questions that someone might have that we can answer quickly for anybody?
Yeah, Don, this is Catherine Pincus. I took your course about, 7 or 8 years ago. It was one of the best things I ever did in terms of training. So I just want to give a shout out to what you're doing. I am happy to help in any way that if you need a volunteer to help just coordinate with different kinds of things outside of everything else, or act as a point person to help Frank. And the first thing when Frank came on board was I talked to him about radios, because I really acutely feel the needs at Chabot. So I just want to thank you for all you're doing, and especially for coming today.
Well, thank you. Yeah, if you email Frank, and then he can send that to me, and then we can get in contact that way. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And I do have to, for sure, thank Dr. Cat. I affectionately call her Dr. Cat, Dr. Catherine Pincus, because she threw this question out to me over a year ago saying, you know anything about radios? And I go, I'm trying to think, there's got to be a way. I need to communicate with my family if they're living in Hercules and I'm working in Hayward. And so I'm thinking there's got to be some kind of way of doing this, but I didn't find a solution. She said, you know anything about ham radios? And that started me on this journey of researching this. And this has really brought us quite a ways, I hope, in terms of progress to benefit the school and benefit the community. So thank you, Dr. Cat, for just planting that little seed in my mind, and hopefully that seed will sprout into something worthwhile for our community. Any other comments, any questions from any? Yes, please.
So maybe I missed this, but if I'm really interested in ham radio. I just never had the opportunity to kind of see where I could make myself applicable and learn this stuff in a concentrated way. Can you kind of point me in the right direction?
I will be in contact with you personally.
Excellent.
And we can certainly chat at length. If you want to stick around after this presentation is done, I'll stop the recording and we can chat for a little bit. But if you have to run off, then we can have a dialogue another time as well.
And same thing with the CERT. I in another life, I volunteered over 1,000 hours with the American Red Cross and the Heart Association. And besides the CPR and all that, I also did certification in advanced first aid, which is a lot of what you were talking about on the medical end. And I'm a retired podiatrist myself. So I would really like to get involved with the CERT part of it. So if you can kind of point me in that direction, that would be great too.
When Don gives us the green light go, when the curriculum can be set up and we can start the enrollment process into CERT as sponsored by Hayward, I will definitely keep everybody appraised of what opportunities there are going to be moving forward for sure. And everybody.
I'll make sure. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll make sure I share that with you, because what we usually do and what we've done in the past is put that on social media, all the city of Hayward's, excuse me, social media outlets. So that's how we, engaged more people. I think we'll do Nextdoor and Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So, and the city's social media as well.
If I live in another county?
What's that?
Does it matter if I live in another county?
No, we started only training CERT for Hayward and Fairview residents, but that's it's kind of counterproductive, because that's saying that other people don't matter. It's kind of, you know what I mean? It's like, well, go do it in your own city. Well, your own city is not providing that, so it's not fair to you. That's my view anyway. So I get as many people as I can get.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate that for sure, because as we work in Hayward and as more and more classes are being conducted on campus in Hayward, then it only stands to reason that the people that need us the most while we're on campus, should an emergency happen, would be those that are in Hayward. So this is great. We will definitely share that information when it becomes available. Any other, I see the message from Jerry. Yes, we will definitely get in contact with you, Jerry, regarding the CERT information as well. Any other additional questions? I don't want to cut anybody off if anybody has any additional questions. All right, then if there's no additional questions, I thank everybody ever so much. I thank my Elmers, Karen and Jay Fenton. I thank Dr. Pincus for planting the seeds for all of this to begin. Thank Don for volunteering his time to share his information with us. And we look forward to moving forward with you with Hayward CERT in that training. So with that, everybody, thank you again for your participation and all the best. Take care. Adios, everybody.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Take
Frank.
care. Bye-bye. My pleasure.